everyone, it's Jen again. We're coming to the end of another week of Otomejam, week number 7. And we are in pretty good shape, I have to say. Endings are done. So all the writing is pretty much finished. I do have to go in there and make the copy edits and add the voice and the sound cues this upcoming week and two. So I'm thinking that if I have some leftover time, I might go ahead and add some more variant dialogue, just because I like to have all just more randomization. So that will be probably a thing. There's a couple bugs that need to get ironed out that I've been finding as I've been playtesting. So that we'll probably also be doing a lot of that this upcoming week, as well as finishing the ending CGs. I'm going to be helping Echoberry with that, and yeah, I think that we are in some pretty decent shape going into this next couple of weeks, and I don't know, maybe we'll try to release early if we can. We'll just have to wait and see. Echoberry did also start making our website, so I'm very excited about that, and what she's learned with CSS is making it super cute. So that's really cool to see start to come into fruition, and it's exciting. Yeah, I thought I would just take this opportunity to go over a few more features of our game, and then I was going to talk a little bit just about I guess for my game development portion, talking a little bit about character design and my personal taste with those, because I didn't really have a whole lot on the programming end to go over. I don't want to really go into anything too technical or advanced, because again, I'm not a programmer, and I know that most of the way that I do things are not optimal. Anyways, let me go ahead and show off a few more things with our game. On this test run, I have been doing Katner's route, so we have 5 stickers unlocked for him, because he is at bond level 5. So every time you unlock a bond level, then you get an extra sticker that you can decorate the calendar with. And you can see that I did do one bond level with Ruin on this run as well. When we look at the stats here, we can see that the affection bar for Kentner is getting pretty filled up. I visited 6 times. He's at bond level 5, and the next summoning cost is going to cost 7 stones. With Ruin, I visited once, bond level 1, and so the cost is going to be 2, and the rest of these guys are at 0, so they're only a cost at 1. When we look at our inventory, you can see that without really doing any exchanging, I have all these soul stones for the other characters because I haven't been summoning them. But with Katner, I've just barely made the threshold for doing the next summon with him. You can go and sell these to make more gold. Let's say I know this run I'm not going to be pursuing these characters at all. Might as well convert them to gold. It's quite a bit of gold, so you won't have to worry about doing the ad clicker to try to get more soul stones. You can just convert the soul stones of characters you're not pursuing if you want. Or again, any of these extra items, especially any of these gold items that are the ultra rare, are going to give you a good amount of money to do some more pulls, to have more chances to get what you're really after. With these decor items, I really only need 1 of each, since you can't double up on them or anything, so those are always an easy money maker. We go to the summoning. Let's go ahead and summon Katner. His conversation is pretty far progressed. We're going to still have different dialogue with him. He's mentioning the cat plushie here. A little bit of extra background lore as to why he does not like the nobles or royal family. I think that's all I really have to show off for the game development right now, and then let's go ahead and move on to talking a little bit about the characters. And I did want to kind of just mention a little bit of the lore. So with this game, I'm gonna lower this for a second. Go back to daytime here. With this game, you're going to be having a series of daily emails from the developers, and this time the developers, if you're familiar with the first two games, being the devs or the gods, as the characters from the fantasy world like to refer to them as. This development team does not refer to themselves as the devs. They refer to themselves as Team OG, and they also have this in parentheses. The name of the two members of Team OG are Eve and Jonas. And all of their kind of interactions are talking to the player character is a little bit more casual, and they're a little bit more chaotic and fun, I guess you could say. And they will be revealing kind of a little bit of background lore about the world and about their world and their role in the story. If you've been looking at any of the kind of like spoiler type material, background type material, you might have seen some character art for Jonas. Eve does not show up until Arcane Dice Wars in the later chapters, so I don't think I've spoiled any artwork of her, although she will be coming up more closely when I go back to working on Arcane Dice Wars. So Team OG are kind of like your little cupids who are trying to help you pair up with your date. And I'm gonna play some kind of like sketching of drawing some artwork of them. They're not wearing their usual costumes that they would wear in ADW, since they are this is just kind of like a fun costume thing that I threw them in for Gacha Date, since they are the sort of primary contact with the protagonist in this game. It's a little bit of a different point of view or setup in that regards from the other two games, so hopefully it'll give a little bit more insight to kind of the development and background of that world. Something a little bit extra for the player to contemplate. Well, this gets me into my like topic for the day, as far as like development goes. And I wanted to talk a little bit about character and world building, because it was something that my copy editor sort of brought up in one of the emails, that there was like this writing exercise. And I've mentioned before that I'm more of a buy your pants kind of writer, and I think that's how I managed to write so much in this short window of time, is because I really just sort of establish the characters in my mind, and then everything they do is just kind of like staying in character for them, and the world sort of gets built around them. And I know that for creating fantasy worlds, especially, like my approach is maybe a little bit unorthodox, that a lot of people start with like the world building, the magic systems, the class systems, those sort of things first, and then they build characters to kind of fit those molds. But for me, characters have always been like my primary focus in these things, so I always start with those first. And where I get my inspiration for a lot of the world building is just from like, I guess like history, a lot of it, because I am like a fan of like nonfiction and documentaries and stuff like that. So it's just like loosely based on like different cultures and societies and histories that I've like learned about over time. And every now and then I will do some specific research because I want to kind of base some of my class systems or cultures on different parts of history of different parts of the world. So much like researching some different costume ideas, I'll often look at clothing from a certain time period and read a little bit about its construction and meld that with like just my own personal taste, or sometimes there'll be a little bit of fusion. Like with Arcane Dice Wars, I wanted it to be a bit of a fusion between like Eastern and Western as far as like their overall like aesthetic, their clothing design, and of course it's very heavily like, just fantasy costume design. There was some thought that I put into like actual historical armor and stuff, but most of it is just like pure fantasy fluff stuff. Since I am a big fan of a lot of the JRPGs that were coming out during like the early and mid 90s 2000s era of like PlayStation. I think my designs tend to be a little bit more simple and less ornate than some of the modern sort of gacha game type designs where, especially with the advent of like live 2D, things have gotten a lot more embellished. But I think I personally like to have a more simple, concise, and deliberate design where you don't have a lot of excess like patterns and dangly bits that just kind of like, I guess, distract from the overall like shapes, in my opinion. So I guess that's aesthetically sort of where I go with some of my character design. And then as far as like designing their personalities, because I had so many characters in this story compared to like most of my stories where I tend to focus on just like a handful of characters or less, I have the whole faction and element personality traits to kind of lean on to give them a little bit more focused direction. And as I was sort of making the endings and taking a step back from like the overall character development, I was really happy with the choices that the players pulled for, because these 5 characters just all have very like, I don't know, distinctive and different character progressions and just end goals and endings, even though there's nothing like terribly I guess spectacular event wise. Like everything is very kind of slice of life. We find ways of making those little details unique and different to each character. Each character is going to approach this new kind of slice of life differently, a little bit differently. And I think that those kind of things are what I'm most interested in for reading stories. Not so much like the big, mysterious, and crazy, catastrophic events that might be unfolding in the worlds that, that that heroes need to come in and save the day from. Those sort of things aren't as interesting to me, I guess. It's just the little things, and not necessarily like profile type blurbs. Like, I don't really care so much personally, again, this is just my taste. Please put your own tastes in the comments below. I personally don't care so much about like their height, weight, eye color, zodiac sign, blood type, favorite snack, or favorite, color type stuff. I'm more interested in like, how does this character approach problems? Why do they approach problems this way? How do they think of themselves? How do they think of others? Why do they think this way? These are the sorts of things that I guess I think of when I look at people in my day-to-day interactions, so that I can try to understand where they're coming from and try to see their perspective better. And so I guess some of those more superficial aspects of them are not as telling as maybe some of the very just more nuanced, subtle things that they might do. The way they carry themselves, the way that they react to a stressful situation, the way they have a tendency to express themselves when they're happy, sad, bored, just these little habits that people have, I think are really interesting, and I think they're more telling of who they are to me than maybe very large accomplishments that they've had in their lives, or what they've done, what they do for a living, and what they tell you about themselves is interesting. But maybe for me, I just find other things more interesting. That's just my where I'm coming from as a creator and a writer. It takes me a long time to build these things up, so I think one of the things that I really struggle with is kind of that grasping somebody's attention in the very beginning of a game, summarizing or advertising, or kind of putting my work out there, because I have a hard time, I guess, giving a summary of these characters as to who they are. I think that they have a strong enough direction, especially in the case of this game, where I've been kind of focusing their traits and elements and personalities in those directions. But it's still really hard for me to, I guess, put my cards on the table and show people what they're in for, which I think is a big part of getting your work seen these days. So that is one thing that I feel like has never been a priority for me, and I don't know if I'll ever get better at that, the marketing aspect of like game development and sharing your work online and stuff. And I know that's something that a lot of people prioritize and they want to focus on, and they want to learn more about. But for me personally, it's just I just like doing this stuff. So yeah, and it always has to be sort of a reflection of like where my own mind likes to go when I'm experiencing the world. So I guess that's why everything I do, even in these like short games, like this is a very short game compared to my other games, it still takes time to build up. So it should be interesting to see how this is received in comparison to some of my other games, being that it's like much more concise, because it has like the premise of like 2 other games to build up on. So I don't have to establish as much, and the characters have already kind of developed to a certain point. We'll see. It should be very interesting from where I'm standing. I think I've probably rambled on enough. Just one last, just final thought, which is, I guess, an interesting thought from an artistic point of view, is that I have also been drawing some art that's going to be for the credits. And in these credit arts, they're a little bit more like pinup style artwork. And I always find it interesting how it's harder for me as an artist to draw pinups of male characters or masculine identifying characters because we just don't have as much cultural reference for these things of sort of, I guess, this more provocative or decorative style artwork when it's like a male character by themselves. Because in this whole series, the protagonist is not revealed. It's hard to draw these kind of like more intimate or alluring kind of artwork with male characters like by themselves. I have no problem whatsoever coming up with a plethora of ideas, compositions, and poses for female characters, even though I don't draw as many female characters, because I have like a whole lifetime of references kind of in my mind of like different types of styles of compositions of like more kind of like feminine alluring artwork and photographs and media. But when it comes to like male characters by themselves, it's more difficult. So if you want to go around in your everyday life and see if you can find more depictions of kind of like male characters or male models by themselves without it being in context to like I guess seducing a female character, it's much harder to find. And it's much harder to like imagine without it just seeming kind of silly. So I can never take it like too seriously when I'm like drawing this type of material because yeah, it's just not something that you see a lot of just in a romantic kind of way. Like you could definitely see like plenty of like male characters by themselves looking cool, looking attractive in that way of just looking like, you know, badass, that type of stuff. But by themselves, like trying to look alluring and romantic and intimate, it's like very hard for me, anyways. Maybe I just don't expose myself to enough of that type of media. I don't know. It's an interesting problem that I've been just like contemplating as I'm like drawing all these different sketches of trying to come up with like different poses and compositions for. When you don't have a female protagonist to make the male character like in the middle of seducing and that sort of thing. Yeah, share your thoughts with me on that as well. Okay, I think that's all I've got for today, and as always, if you're working on anything, please don't forget to enjoy the process. And hey, if you're just going through life, making it day by day, don't forget to try to enjoy that process as well. All right, take care. Have a great week. Bye-bye.